talk a little bit about the economy right now. The economy amidst the coronavirus pandemic and what is happening. The reality is stark economically. We saw a jobs report on Friday. 20.5 million jobs lost just in the last period. And millions of jobs lost since then. Not only that, but the labor force participation rate is at its lowest level since 1973. That means the number of people in the workforce looking for work or working, either or, not just working, but looking for work, is at its lowest level since 1973, when women were just starting to get more heavily involved in the workforce. That is stunning. And it is an exemplification of the economic turmoil we are in now that must be reversed. We must reopen the economy. Yesterday on Fox News Sunday, in Cut 8, Steve Mnuchin was pressed on the unemployment numbers, and how terrible they are. The official unemployment rate, which doesn't include a heck of a lot of people working, about 14.7%. And the number could be, in reality, closer to a full quarter of the economy. Take a look.
Bureau of Labor Statistics says what they call the real unemployment number for April, which again includes people who are not looking for work or underemployed, is 22.8%. But again, that does not include, because the unemployment numbers for April stopped in mid-April, does not include the 7 million people who have lost their jobs since then. So aren't we talking close to 25% at this point, which is Great Depression neighborhood?
Chris, we could be, but let me just emphasize, unlike the Great Depression, where you had economic issues that led to this, we closed down the economy. So it wouldn't be a surprise if you closed down the economy that in half of the workforces, half the people didn't work. And that's why we're very focused on rebuilding this economy and getting it back to where it was. This is no fault of American business. This is no fault of American workers. This is a result of a virus. And that's why the president and I were determined to put together the largest economic program ever to help American workers get through this. So you are correct. The reported numbers are probably going to get worse before they get better. But that's why we're focused on rebuilding this economy. We'll have a better third quarter. We'll have a better fourth quarter. And next year is going to be a great year.
He's absolutely right that this is no fault of American business, what we're facing right now. It's the result of two things. One, he identified a virus, which is true, the coronavirus, and the turmoil that has brought about. But also, he didn't include this point, which is government. Because of the virus, governments made a determination to shut down the economy, including many businesses that could otherwise be operative. The economic turmoil we're facing right now, seems to be my phrase of the day, economic turmoil, is a result primarily of government shutting down the economy in an effort to stop the spread of this virus, and it is of dubious effect. I do not believe that there is sufficient evidence to demonstrate clearly and without any noticeable doubt, because I think there's a heck of a lot of doubt, that this policy of shutting things down really worked, or that it would continue to work moving forward. We've never tried this sort of thing before, and there's a reason why. There are a number of reasons why, in fact, including the untold damage to the economy. The virus would have taken a toll no matter what, but it's amplified significantly because of government policies, government shutdowns. In Cut 9, Steve Mnuchin, again, Treasury Secretary, warns of permanent economic damage if we do not get the economy reopened. He's right about that. But Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday yesterday began this portion of their interview by playing a clip from a leader of the Federal Reserve.
But Patrick Harker, head of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve, says if the economy opens too soon and the virus spikes again, quote, not only would this be a health catastrophe, but it would reverse the recovery as well. If that happens, he predicts, quote, a painful economic contraction of GDP in 2021 as shutdowns are reintroduced. Do you agree that there is a considerable risk, not to say you shouldn't do it, but there is a considerable risk to reopening both from a public health and an economic standpoint?
Chris, if we do this carefully, working with the governors, I don't think there's a considerable risk. Matter of fact, I think there's a considerable risk of not reopening. You're talking about what would be permanent economic damage to the American public, and we're going to reopen in a very thoughtful way that gets people back to work safely, that has them social distance. One of the things we've seen, Chris, is a lot of businesses can do telework. Not everybody has to come back into the office at the same time, but people will be able to go into stores. Some of them will have reservations when they go in, but businesses will be able to reopen. And I think, as you know, certain parts of the country had very devastating impacts, like New York, and certain parts of the country didn't. And this is all being monitored very, very carefully.
Permanent economic damage. He's right. Steve Mnuchin, beyond dispute, is right. Because what you're doing is setting up for long, long lasting difficulties for this economy to get back on its feet the longer this lasts. If we can get things reopened more and more, several states are doing so already, including California, finally starting on a track loosely to reopen. If we can do that, then we can keep the economic damage in check. We can start to bring about an economic recovery. But if we do not, then we will see permanent economic damage. I get the point from that leader of the Federal Reserve who was suggesting, you know, we really should keep things shut down longer, otherwise the economic damage is going to be even more pronounced. I get what he's saying, sort of, but not really. Because while I understand his point that we are going to see more economic challenges in the future, even if we reopen, of course we will, because the virus isn't going to go away like that. That does not mean that shutting down the economy indefinitely is going to be better. By no stretch of the imagination is keeping economic activity suppressed for a long period of time going to be better for bounce back potential than reopening is. Because what you're doing by suppressing economic activity for the long term, you are keeping the flow of dollars out of the economy. You're relying upon the government to basically borrow money at this point. The federal government is borrowing $3 trillion of new debt. That is not wealth creation. That is sort of pulling money out of thin air. You might remember the novel The Giving Tree. I'm thinking about the money tree right now. That seems to be where the federal government's looking to get their money from. And it's absurd, patently absurd, to think that the government can just be there and provide. But that is what some of the elite economists at the Federal Reserve believe. Oh, we are all-knowing and all-powerful. We are extremely prescient. In fact, we are omniprescient. And you should trust us because we're at the Federal Reserve. And we're giving advice that you just keep things shut down and we will boost back through Federal Reserve policies. Dumb. Incomprehensibly dumb for a noted leader of a prominent economic institution in the United States to basically say we keep things shut down, at some point the government could just step in and fix it, because that's what he's implying. That the government can keep things on ice and just pay people. And it is ludicrous. This idea of modern monetary theory, let's just keep printing the money, is ludicrous. But that is the philosophy of the elite that trust that they know better than you do how to run your life. The elite that trust that they know how to run the economy better than the private market. Let's be real about something. Let's keep it real here about the fact that we won a Cold War against a regime that believed in central planning. I was born in 1990, basically didn't live during the Cold War. The Soviet Union was about to collapse within a year after I was born. And the reality here is that what we're seeing right now are many politicians and elite economists at places like the Federal Reserve suggesting that central planning is the way to go right now. No, they're not necessarily saying forever, but they're saying indefinitely, until we think we've got to grapple on this. That guy at the Fed is essentially saying the same thing as Zeke Emanuel, who was saying we need 18 months to get a handle on this thing. The governor of Georgia put out a tweet highlighting that he's had fewer deaths in his state since reopening than they began the numbers. He had a day that brought things down to the lowest level since they began tallying. That shows that the idea that reopening is simply going to lead to chaos and death doesn't fit. And the data already doesn't show conclusively that shutting down in the first place was the right thing to do. People's lives are being destroyed. More and more data coming out about the mental health aspects of this. Mental health issues do not go away, and they can become more and more serious over time. People can't discount that. You can't discount the physical abuse that may be happening to children in their homes who are not being reported because, say, a teacher's not catching that something's awry at home. And now those kids are captors in their homes, potentially being abused even more because their parents can't tolerate being around a kid all day. It's worth it to reopen. You do what my dad calls the Ben Franklin analysis, looking at the costs and the benefits. And the costs of this shutdown and perpetuating it far outweigh the benefits. Because we're not just talking about loss of life, raw data of numbers of loss of life, but we are also talking about the loss of lives in real time for years and years to come. What is being lost to people who are still alive, but their lives are being stripped away. Their livelihoods may be adding to stress or other issues. Got to get things reopened, folks. Thanks for watching this clip of Jimmy at the Crossroads. Don't miss more engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe today to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel. You do not want to miss our live show. Thanks for your support.
I got Jimmy at the crossroads, making sense out of no sense. Yeah.